Hello, my name is Paula Summerly, and today we'll be talking about the outbreak of bubonic plague in Galveston, and we'll be looking at some objects in the case that refer to a war on rats. The campaign involved realtors, we had posters with war on rats, the scout movement got involved, and there was a clear up really of the city. Any outhouses or trash buildup were all removed to stop the rats congregating. Signage was also used. You can see here bathing beauty pageant on the seawall, and here we have two bathing beauties perched on rocks, and you can see just faintly behind there's a little notice painted on the seawall to notify people there's poison hidden amongst the rocks. That's a great social historical document there. Here there's a wonderful trap from the 1920s period, and there's even a desiccated or dried dead rat in the cage from the 1920s period. And you can see the advert here for the Acme rat trap. So traps were commonly used during the outbreak of bubonic plague. The city also employed 40 rat trappers, and their job was to go around the city with their buckets and collect dead rats. The local community also got involved in catching rats by labeling the dead rats and taking them to a plague laboratory. So we're looking for a common source of the outbreak, but they could never actually find the common source. So as well as trapping, there's also poisons, and here there's a beautiful glass bottle from the 1930s. You can see the rat etched on it. And I'm thinking, why such a beautiful etching? Maybe it was to put off people drinking it, because obviously it was lethal kind of poison. And you can see some rather wonderful little ads for war on rats. These are slightly earlier than the outbreak of bubonic plague in Galveston, but just to show you some of the advertising themes that were used with cats and mice, which I think are rather charming. To stop rats coming from the ships on the harbour side, there were rope guards, which were circular discs which were placed on the ropes, so when the rat tried to come down from the ship, it couldn't get to land because of the disc. It would fall off into the water. And you can see here the letter itself has its corners trimmed. So what would happen is the mail would be put into carts or trucks, and then various poisons were put in, and then the perforation would allow all the fumes to go through the letter just in case any of the bacteria was in the letter. McInerney was a famous storekeeper in Honolulu, so this was a letter sent to the store. Other methods of perforating mail with a little device, almost like a hairbrush with nails in, and you could perforate mail that way. And fumigation of mail was really common in earlier times. We have during smallpox epidemics and so on. And it brings to my mind the current pandemic that we're in. My neighbors use Lysol on deliveries. They just fumigate, and it's very kind of similar. You think how history repeats itself. So due to the success of these, a combination of rat trapping and fumigation and poisons, fortunately Galveston didn't have to endure quarantine. Quarantine was used historically during outbreaks of bubonic plague. The most notable was in the village of Eyam in the north of England. And as we're going through quarantine, I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with wearing these masks. And some would say they're kind of awkward. But if you'd been around in the 12th century, you would have been dressed, like a plague doctor. You'd have a large beak-like structure. And at the end of the structure, there were rose petals to filter the bad air. And the famous drawings of 12th century plague doctors walking around covered from head to toe in this kind of leather, long coats, and headdresses with a beak-like structure and a stick. And they'd come and visit to see if anyone had, the dead, bring out your dead time in the 12th century in London. So these masks are a slight improvement from what the plague doctors used to have to wear. Thank you for joining me today, and I hope you learned a little about the war on rats in Galveston.